Welcome to the TeacherCast Educational Network, coming to you from the TeacherCast studios since 2011. Join us each week as we bring you the latest educational news, EdTech updates, and hottest interviews with today's most influential leaders in education. And now, for your host, Jeff Bradbury.
Hello, and welcome to the TeacherCast Educational Network. My name is Jeff Bradbury, and welcome to the Jeff Bradbury Show. On today's episode, we're going to be talking all about entrepreneurship, marketing, and how you can leverage artificial intelligence to help your client journey go from quick to even quicker. If this is the first time you're joining us on the show today, thank you very much for listening. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe, and you can find out more information about our shows in our archives over at teachercast.net/podcasts. My guest today is the Director of Growth Strategy at Function Growth, and he's also the co-founder of a fantastic company called Wellow. I want to bring on today Mr. Kyle Hoffman. Kyle, how are you today? Welcome to the podcast.
I'm doing great. Thanks, Jeff.
I am so happy to have you on. Over the last few episodes, we've been talking a lot about building companies, brand building, and how educators can really take that next step to create something special as a content creator. This is something, of course, that you're no stranger to. Talk to us a little bit about your journey to where you are, from where you were to where you are today.
Yeah, so my background has kind of always been in the marketing world, the e-commerce, D2C world. I knew coming out of college that I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew that I liked creative outlets. But at the same time, I was kind of numbers focused. I always had a tough time picking a path. And lo and behold, I came across kind of the world of digital marketing, which is both creative and numbers driven at the same time. You get to be analytical, but also come up with innovative concepts, and so I kind of really gravitated towards it. And I worked with a company called Hawk Media for a long time. When we were starting, we were only 30 employees or something like that when I started, and they've of course grown a lot. And I was a part of some of that early growth, and it was a great place to learn and work with tons of different small and medium-sized businesses that were in the e-commerce space, and we helped them do strategy, run advertising, do all sorts of digital marketing things. And then I went brand side for some time, and then I started doing fractional things. But I've been in the world of sort of marketing, entrepreneurial, e-commerce things for my entire career.
There's so many educators listening to this show today that are trying to take that first step, or maybe have taken that step and are looking for some guidance. For anybody that's out there listening to this, trying to figure out, where can I start to build a brand? Where can I start to create content that people are interested in looking at consuming? What advice do you have for those educators out there that are trying to take that first step to see what's beyond the classroom?
Yeah, I think it comes down to really understanding where you want to be an entrepreneur. What's the market that you want to address, or what's the need that you want to address? And in recent years, after all of the experience I talked about, I now work for a company called Function Growth, and we've launched our own company, Compression Socks Company. So we kind of took a lot of bigger companies will build in-house agencies. We did the opposite. We were an agency, and we decided to build an in-house brand. And it's taken off. It's done so much better than even we anticipated it to do. And so the Compression Socks Company is called Wellow. And just like any brand, we had to start by understanding the compression socks market. For us, we chose compression socks partially because we were in the market for compression socks and realized that there was a big need, but also as you start to think about it, you have to think about the economics and the feasibility of the product. If you want to make a D2C brand, you have to think about those things. So it's lightweight, and easy to ship, and cheap to ship. It's relatively easy to manufacture, and there's not too many sizes we can have, but just a handful of SKUs with lots of different colors. But anyway, when we started the brand, we had to discover what was going on in the compression socks market. What were things that people were frustrated with? What were they looking for? And it was pretty obvious, for at least in the compression sock space, that they needed something that was more colorful. They wanted a brand that was more lifestyle, wasn't so serious, and so that was the brand we set out to build, and it's been great. So yeah, I would say understand your market, understand your customer. What, not just demographics, but what are they thinking about? Where do they spend time? What are they interested in? What are their beliefs? Those things help you get to then talking about as you build your brand, the most important messages, featuring the most important messages that are going to resonate with those people. So I would start with the market that you want to address.
You say the words company and brand. In your mind, are those the same thing, or can you have a company that doesn't yet have a brand? And if so, how do you make a brand from a company?
Yeah, I would say they're different things, though. These days, if you want to be a successful company, you probably need a brand. But they're two different things. That, like, in my mind, a company is the operations. You are spending money and you're making more money back. That's at the end of the day a business. And a brand is more the thing that's going to resonate with customers. It's more like a personality, right? You can be a person, but the personality is the brand. And so the brand is what makes you different from other products in the market. It's what sets you apart, and it's what helps you build a relationship with the customers that you're trying to build a relationship with. Especially, like, you talk about compression socks. There's a lot of compression socks companies out there who all make compression socks. If we didn't have a brand, it'd be impossible to decide which one you were going to buy, outside of just the differences in the product. And so building your brand is about talking about the things that you want to highlight, and then also standing out from the competition.
So for the teachers that are out there looking to build themselves their EDU brands and trying to take that step, especially in a world where there's so many other teachers that are trying to do that same thing, what advice do you have for creating that brand, for marketing that brand, and taking that step so that way they can get noticed by others?
Mm-hmm. Our approach is whether you're building a personal brand, whether you're a company, you have a customer journey that someone who's going to either subscribe to you or buy from you. They go through a step-by-step process of learning about you, researching about you, ending up subscribing, and then continuing to be a customer or a subscriber, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. In order, I think, to apply this in order to understand how you want to brand yourself in your personal brand, I think you have to understand like I said, the market. And what I would do is go through the customer journey of all of your competitors. The first thing I would do is just try to understand how other people in your market are positioned and how you can position yourself differently. Or also pull the things that are clearly working for good reason. So at the end of the day, it's just about you have to craft a customer journey that is, these days, people are just so used to having optimized customer journeys. People shop on Amazon, they shop on Allbirds, they shop on Casper. All these companies spend millions and millions, if not billions of dollars, sometimes in the case of Amazon, on optimizing the customer journey and customer experience. And so you have to tailor and build your customer journey and customer experience in the right way, basically. And to do that, I would start with exploring your competitors, see what does it feel like to be a subscriber or customer with them. What does it feel like to go through the process and see what kind of content exists and all those things. You kind of have to be in the market to understand how to market yourself and brand yourself.
It seems in the world of being an entrepreneur, there's two types. I'm going to generalize here for a second, but you've got the type that you had already spoke about. I already like compression socks, so I'm going to create a compression socks company. It's something I'm interested in. I'm doing it. And then there's the other side, which is find the need and then plug the need. And maybe you're not a compression socks user, but you find that there's a market out there for it. I'm going to go create that product. How did you guys land on compression socks?
That's a good question. We ended up skewing a little bit more in the second of those two camps. We were using a little bit. One of our co-founders, Michael Aaron, was traveling across the country. He was in a long distance relationship with his now wife, but at the time he was traveling between New York and San Diego almost every weekend. And compression socks are great for travel, and so he came across compression socks, started wearing some of them, and was like, "Oh gosh, these all kind of suck." And so that happened at the same time that we were, having success growing other D2C and e-commerce companies, and we're like, "Oh, we should probably start our own e-commerce company." And so we got connected, and anyway, that's how the ball started rolling. But we knew that compression socks was just a great fit for an e-commerce product for some of those reasons: lightweight, easy to ship, relatively easy to manufacture. And these days, if you want to do advertising, especially in the e-commerce space, in the apparel space, it can be very competitive and expensive. And so you kind of need to have a good idea of what your margins are going to be on your product, so that you have room to spend money on all that advertising and the customer acquisition cost.
Kyle, I know you've had an opportunity to work through many businesses in all different areas here. Many of the teachers that are listening to this aren't looking at this from the corporate or the company point of view. They're looking at it from the creator or the creative point of view. Do you find that there's a difference in philosophy if you're going at it as a business versus as a creator? And what can creators learn by looking at business owners?
Mm-hmm. That's a really good question. I think there's value on both ends, and you can't really, you can be a creator, but if you're purely a creator without the sort of business angle on it, then you're basically an artist. And it's a little bit different. So I think a company, like I said before, a company that exists without any creativity you're a commodity at that point, and it's going to be really hard to survive these days. So, I think you need the creativity. It's kind of what fuels, like I talked about before, the brand side of the business, making sure that you're building relationships with customers and that you're exciting and engaging, and people will want to be a part of what you have to offer. But at the end of the day, if you don't have the right business sort of skeleton behind your brand, then it's not sustainable. You can't continue to do those things because you can't afford to invest in the creativity. Creativity is sort of, at least if you want to create content, you want to develop these things that people can engage with. That costs money, and so you've got to have a smart business plan behind it to make sure that it works for you and you can continue doing that.
I think that's an excellent answer. And, myself included in this, so many teachers start doing something, and then some point somebody comes up to them and says, "Hey, you have value here. You should start charging for that." As opposed to, I'm starting this journey because I'm money focused or business focused that way. I mean, there's so many teachers that don't realize what their value is, don't realize what their worth is. Speak a little bit, if you can, to that creator community out there. How do you figure out what that value is? You had mentioned, you're an artist. How do you help somebody figure out what their worth is to other people? Is it the market? Do you just put a number on it and see what sticks? How does somebody who's out there building their own brand, whether it be a math teacher, English teacher, whatever, how can they figure out where their place is in this business world?
Yeah, I think you've got to have people want to buy sort of the story, like what creates value in someone's mind is not always just transactional. Sometimes there has to be they're buying one, what you can do for them as the biggest driver of value. What am I actually going to get out of this? But then two, like having some sort of story can help set you apart too. And so So at the end of the day, I think if you're trying to figure out how to value what it is that you're producing, what it is that you want to offer, market is an important factor too. I'd start there, right? Like, how much are other people who do a similar thing charging for? There's, if the market for compression socks is charging $30, you're going to have a really tough time selling $100 compression sock. It gives you the upper and lower ranges. But beyond that, if you feel like what you have to offer is better in some way than what exists out there, then you have to figure out how to define that, and that's what's going to give you value. And so a lot of times that's coming up with the story. What makes you different? What makes your brand unique? So I think that's how you can kind of figure out your value. But got to look at the market. That gives you your goalposts, and then figure out how you can maximize it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. One of the things that we do here on the channel is just try to, we make those relationships with other creators, try to figure out what they're charging, how they're doing it, what kind of content's coming out, what other podcasters are doing. And really what it comes down to is something that I know you've got a lot of expertise in, which is behavioral science, making sure that we can see what other, well, put it this way. How do you define behavioral science to somebody?
Yeah. BSI is really fun for us. Everyone at our company goes through a behavioral science certification, and so and we think it's really important. It's sort of in the world of e-commerce and D2C marketing. We think of it as sort of this like forgotten art where everyone has got so obsessed with data because it's more accessible now than it's ever been. With everyone having Shopify platforms and you run all your ads on digital, it just gives you immediate feedback and data to be able to make decisions. So everyone is data obsessed. There's nothing wrong with that. And then you've got all these like kind of marketing hacks and information and expertise, which is also good to have. But there's sort of this third leg to the stool that people have kind of ignore or subconsciously talk about. But like, there's scientists out there who are running behavioral science studies on how consumers and people think and behave and interact with companies that we can learn from. And just it helps you. The way we sort of think about behavioral science is that you can come up with a test just based on data and what marketing expertise you have, but you might be able to leap 100 tests forward by just using the data that already exists from all these behavioral science studies. So we think of behavioral science as something that informs our strategy when we're trying to market or figure out how to brand things. And so there's just all sorts of tactics and things that you can use. And a lot of these things are like, choice paralysis, for example, is something that a lot of people might know intuitively or think about, but they don't have the words to describe it, and they don't have the thought to go and look at the data behind it. Choice paralysis is basically you go to a website, and if there's too many choices, people actually tend to sort of freeze and then decide not to buy anything. So there's tests. I forget the exact study that was run, but they had a couple of, I think it was food carts or ice cream carts or something like that. And one cart had, 20 flavors, which you think would be great. I've got 20 different flavors. A lot of people will even market that as something that makes them better. And then there was another cart that had 3 flavors, and the cart that had 3 flavors sold way more ice cream than the one that had 20 flavors, because people would walk up, I don't know what I'm going to get. But if there's only 3 choices, then it's a lot easier of a decision. Which just all kind of goes back, like, why is that the case? It's because people, the less friction there is in your decision cycle. Again, I was talking about customer journey. As you go through these customer journeys, where are the friction points that you're hitting, and like, how can you reduce those? If there's only 3 flavors instead of 20, you're making it a lot easier for that person to make a decision and move forward in the customer journey.
The less is more concept is interesting. I study a lot of newsletters and people who are out there in that creative space, and they're building out all these newsletters and sequences and all that great stuff. And I always end up asking the question, these people that are sending out newsletters that are a mile long, is that going to convert better than if I send out a shorter newsletter that seriously just has like one poll or one piece of content on it? What is those right answers? But I keep seeing content creators out there more and more doing these very, very long, detailed, the journey of the weekend, basically kind of things.
Yeah.
But, to your point, 3 ice cream choices is better than 20 any day, it seems.
Yeah. And this is the way that we would use behavioral science, is not to say, because every business and every application of it is different. So we wouldn't say that, if you're a compression sock company, you should only have 3 versus 20. What we would say is you should start with 3 and then test and see if 20, because data would tell us that the most likely scenario is that 3 is probably better, but it can be different. So it just, that's where it gives you the head start, basically. Someone who didn't know that might say, I don't know, let's start with 20 and then we'll see if maybe less works. And so it just gives you the head start. Yeah.
One of the things I wanted to ask you about is, as you mentioned, this whole idea of customer journey. And I've had an opportunity over the last few weeks, and school's been winding up, to talk to a lot of, educational content creators about this concept of converting their free content into paying content. And I don't think that's an easy thing for any business, but it's certainly a difficult thing when you're working with the education world, which is not always the easiest to pay for things, especially this type of content. What advice do you have out there for the bloggers, the podcasters, we content creators that are trying to convert free content into paid subscribers or paid members or paid memberships, etc.?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think at the end of the day, it's sort of probably helpful to think of it in terms of like the sort of the micro steps along the way. So like, what's the first thing that you can provide someone or show someone the value of what you have that's going to make them want to pay for it up front? If you just, it's intimidating to think of the whole thing. Like, I've got all this free, this content right now or whatever, it's free, and how am I possibly going to change all of it so that it's paid? Is kind of an intimidating thing. But if you think of it from just the first moment, put yourself in the shoes of someone who's new and hasn't heard of you before. This is much harder when you already have people who follow you and subscribe. Them changing their opinion is, of course, much easier than creating a new first impression. But think of someone new and say, what is the one thing that I can give them that they will be willing to pay for, that would push them over the fence? And then once they get over the hump, and maybe that's sort of like the world of B2B, it's a white paper or some piece of content that is going to help them do something. And so whatever that sort of tripwire piece of content is, or gated piece of content is, that you can use that push people over the hump, and then kind of continue to deliver value. At the end of the day, just got to deliver value, got to deliver more value in that person's mind than they feel like they're paying.
They always say it takes, between 7 and 12 visits to some place to actually make them become a customer. I'm curious if that's the same thing in the socks world than it is in the podcasting world. Do you find the same thing of, how many times somebody comes to your website to actually purchase some socks, or is this a universal experience for that customer journey?
Yeah, it's pretty universal. There's what we would call impulse purchases, or will be the quicker ones, and then certain decisions, of course, take much longer. Buying a mattress you're gonna probably go to the website 60 times before you finally purchase. Socks are somewhere in between, but yeah, there's certainly not a lot of people who are just coming and buying right away, because especially with compression socks. Maybe with regular socks, those are more impulse buys, but compression socks are more of a considered purchase, where you want to make sure you're getting the right compression level, that it's going to meet the needs that you have as a compression sock wearer. So I don't know, I can't remember off the top of my head the exact number, but I want to say it's probably in the 5 to 10 visits range. And of course, the visits, there's also, how many times are they receiving our different advertisements and all sorts of stuff like that. So
Talking today to Kyle Hoffman, Head of Strategy for Function Growth. Kyle, before I let you go, and thank you so much for your time today. This has been a wealth of education. If you guys are out there listening and have any questions, please feel free to reach out over at teachercast.net/contact. Would love to get some questions here, and I can always pass them over to Kyle. I got to ask the question that's on everybody's mind this summer, which is, of course, artificial intelligence. Talk to us a little bit about the role that AI has had on your positions, on your business decisions, and how maybe is it being used to help you guys create your brands in the summer of 2024?
Yeah, it is invaluable for us. We use a lot of AI tools on a daily basis just to make decisions. We use creative AI tools to help us come up with concepts. For designs, for advertisements, for emails, for the website, and we even have our own AI tools too that we use, like what we call Felix. So we will take all sorts of data, we'll plug in this infrastructure, AI and data capture infrastructure to a brand, and then we're able to see. We're able to kind of process all that data and then run it through AI and actually have AI interpret and come up with strategic recommendations for what the brand should do based on the actual data that's occurring. And we even layer in some behavioral science AI too. And so AI is used not just daily, but probably on an hourly, maybe if not every minute basis at our company. So very important.
What advice do you have for those out there? And after we get done recording this, we're recording this right now in the middle of June. We're going to be heading out to Denver for this huge educational technology conference called ISTE. And 20,000 educators are basically going to be coming and having an AI party to learn how to use this thing better and how to teach our classes. When it comes to AI, what advice do you have for creating prompts to then help generate that content for things such as your email marketing, your brand building, your customer journey? What have you found is important to you over the last few months of using AI in your company?
Yeah, I forget where I've read this, but I found it to be the kind of the perfect synopsis of you should tell AI who it is instead of what to do. And it's so almost any time that we do a prompt in ChatGPT, for example, you start with, if you need help with creative, you're a seasoned creative director who's thoughtful and understands nuances of different, customer or people behaviors and all these things, whatever. You have to set the stage for it to give you a good answer. And I think they generally call that kind of like developing personas for your prompts. And that's been super, super impactful for us.
That's awesome. We're taking all the notes are going to be over here in our show notes. And Kyle, first of all, thank you so much for your time. I've learned a lot. I hope everybody out there listening has learned a lot from this show. Where can people get a hold of all the great work that you guys are doing these days?
Yeah, if you want to check us out, we're at functiongrowth.co, and you can. There's a lead capture on the website, so you can reach out there on the website. I'm on LinkedIn too, so you can find Kyle Hoffman on LinkedIn at Function Growth, and you can also email me, khoffman@functiongrowth.co.
We're going to make sure
that
make sure we have all those links over on our show notes. You're going to head over to teachercast.net/podcast and check out all of the great stuff. Kyle, one more time, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, Jeff. It's been great to be on.
And that wraps up this episode of the Jeff Bradbury Show. On behalf of Kyle and everybody here on TeacherCast, my name is Jeff Bradbury, reminding you guys to keep up the great work in your classrooms and continue sharing your passions with your students.
You've been listening to the TeacherCast Educational Network, hosted by Jeff Bradbury. Please reach out to the show with all of your questions on Twitter @TeacherCast or online at www.teachercast.net. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. And please take a moment to write a review in the App Store.